Calling this meeting to order Monday, October 14th, 5 p.m. This is a school board workshop with the town of Mukwonago and the Vernon administrator to discuss voting. So welcome. Joe?
Yeah, so last year around this time, we had a board workshop similar in nature.
Can we have them introduce themselves first, Joe?
What's that?
Introduce themselves, please.
Oh, absolutely.
There's some new board members here.
Okay, so Karen and Kathy, would you mind introducing yourself?
Carlowitz, and I'm the administrative clerk treasurer for the town of Mukwonago. I've been there about 16
Talk into the microphone, please, Kathy.
Sure.
There we go.
Kathy Carlowitz, town administrator, clerk treasurer. Been there about 16 years just about now, so.
Ooh, Karen Chu, I'm the village president. I used to be the clerk administrator treasurer for 10 years, but now I'm the village president.
So last year, about a year ago, we got together, we met, we talked about voting in schools, we talked about some of the limitations that we face, particularly doing it at the elementary school. The board was willing to have another meeting to have discussion around voting in school. And because it's a workshop format, we can have open discussion, kind of talk about some of the work that's been done, perhaps in the village and in the town. Board can ask questions, share some ideas, and there's no action tonight, so it's just a discussion format from a workshop standpoint.
So I guess I have a question of where are you guys at as far as strategic planning of moving forward?
For the town.
Yes.
So we are looking, we'd have to build a building. So we are in very, very preliminary stages at looking at purchasing land and actually putting up a building to house the election in. Or we have to go to the village, somewhere in the village temporarily to house that. We don't have anything in the town that we could have it at that has adequate. The town hall we can use for small elections, and I would just throw this out there that, if we could even use the school for every other year, just August and November would help. We could do the other elections at the hall and the firehouse because they are not as big a turnout, and we could handle the parking. But currently, if we keep going this way, we have to look at a DPW garage, but we wouldn't have to make it for a polling place if we had something else. But that's where we're at. We're still moving forward on building.
And the Village of Vernon's in the process of doing a facility study for either a renovation or a new fire department and or DPW administrative complex. But that's even with doing that, we have the land, but our board passed a resolution in Vernon that if there's any expenditures over 3.3 million, approximately, or 0.025% of our assessed value, we have to go to the electors to get permission, where under the law, we don't have to do that, where schools do. And Vernon's in a little better position as it relates to, we can, as Kathy stated, we can house all of our elections at the village hall. We've done presidentials and governor's races. Those are the big ones, especially the presidential and the governor's races aren't far behind. We can do them. It's just difficult, and our DPW garage is it's kind of icky, but if people are only in there for a little bit, they're not too crabby. And the other place Vernon was going to look at is there's a huge union hall, but WEC told us that we couldn't use that hall, but I since found out that WEC allows Madison to use their, they have union halls in there. So there's some, information I want to check on that. So I would agree with Kathy, the two every other year when we have the governor's race and or presidentials, those are the only times that using the school would be critical. Otherwise, we can handle it ourselves. And if we had to, we can handle it ourselves, but it's just not conducive to that many people. And even though we both have a lot of absentee voters, but with having, over 5,000 registered voters, that's a lot of people in a little teeny facility.
Yeah, during COVID was the only time that we had a lot of absentees, and 500 people came in person. But otherwise, we get a lot of people in person as well, so.
Carolyn?
This may be a silly question. I thought it was brought up at one point, maybe possibly using the high school for voting. Is that something that's even allowable? For example, with Vernon, do you have to have the voters vote within your
Nobody-
area?
No.
No,
Okay,
you can have them vote in another community.
okay.
Do you think that would affect turnout? Say for I mean, for the town, I don't know that it would matter. I mean, I live in the town. It doesn't matter to me if I go to Rolling Hills or the town hall or the high school. But for Vernon, do you think
No matter
that would
where we have
stop
it,
people
trust
from
me,
voting?
we put signs, like 9 feet signs, telling them where to vote, and they still come to the village hall and say, yeah, they like, and we put it in the newsletter. So no matter where you have the election, you're always gonna have people go the
I would
wrong
have
way.
grumblers, I'm sure. One of the places I was looking at, because I gotta tell you, if we can't work with the school, the public school, I'm not gonna go to a parochial school and have to deal with that too. So the only other place was maybe Brook Life Church, so people from the town are gonna have to drive to Brook Life Church. Will that affect the voting turnout? The grumbling probably will happen, having to drive that far. It's just trying to find a place that will house everything, you know, the parking and the crowds. And I probably would not have it there for every election either. I'd probably, because you know what, if I could do it at the hall, it's more convenient for us than to cart everything to the school, unpack it all, put it all back in and cart it back up. We'd rather have it there, but we just can't. We had it the last time we had it there. We did, if you all remember back in, was it 2012 when we did all the governor recalls and all that, and we had golf carts going through the paths, and then the state says you just can't do it anymore. People have to be able to pull up and park, so we just don't have it.
And Wisconsin Elections Commission is very good about responding to complaints that they have. And you feel bad because the elected boards decide where the elections are gonna be, and unfortunately, the people that listen to the crabby people are the poor election inspectors that have nothing to do with the politics or the decisions that are made. And even though you give them little slips, please call your elected, they just yell at them, and you feel so bad.
Right.
Because they shouldn't get yelled at, it should be us that gets yelled at.
Does the state then provide funding to you to
Crosby,
help
talk to the microphone,
facilities?
please.
No,
So,
Fun.
so you're SOL because you don't have the space or the parking, but they also don't help you finance the space or the parking.
correct.
Okay.
Did you ever look into the option of creating a path, a road that led to the park where all the parking is?
So that was an option, but because that is behind the town hall, if anybody's familiar with Town Park, that is a, what's the word?
Conservancy?
Thank you. Thank you. That is, and you have to be careful. So we have a path that goes through there, but it does this. So you'd have to level it off, and there's certain laws for handicap accessibility and people walking on the path, and you'd have to have it lit. And I mean, you're talking well over probably $70,000 to make that happen, because the parking is beyond there. The parking is beyond into the park. So, you know, and it's a ways to go. That's why when back in 2012, we even did golf carts because people couldn't walk. You know, some people just can't do that walk. So,
Right. I'm just thinking like $70,000, if that's still like the number, that'd be a lot cheaper than building and buying land.
well, I even looked at putting in a parking lot, but that conservancy is a problem. It would be something that we'd have to talk to the county, but we were moving forward on looking at, you know, building a big building for our DPW and then making it for both.
Mike?
Just so I'm clear, are we looking for two separate schools, like, or just one larger place for both of the areas? I mean, I'm from Vernon. What are you looking for? Because I voted at the Big Bend Elementary, and then, you know, we used to vote at the town hall. But like for Vernon, for a larger election, couldn't you just split it up and have both of them open?
The village hall and the school?
Yes.
Oh, we could, but that's really confusing, especially depending on your wards and well, not, wouldn't be.
You could
'cause
do
president- Yeah, you could do it.
You
but
can have we used to have two polling places in the town. We had Hillside Church, which is now Story Hill, right on the corner. It was not conducive. It's very, very narrow, and it was hard to set up, and it did not work.
A lot of steps go downstairs too.
Well, it had an elevator there, though. But you could drive around the back and park, but it did not work for the setup that we needed, so.
And the village hall and the fire department work fine for us. The only thing is the fire department during COVID didn't want any extra bodies in the fire department to keep the firefighters and EMTs safe, but that's not the issue now. The problem now is that every part of that fire department is used for living space or the space that they need for the fire department, and trying to clear that out it'd be easier for us, even though it's messy and creepy, it'd be easier for us to empty the DPW department and do it all there. I mean, I've done a presidential there, and they lined up all the way back to the scrap, but it worked. I mean, it was awful, but it still worked.
If you did two separate places, logistically, like the amount of volunteers or poll watchers and all that stuff, would you have enough people to do
Well,
that?
we'd never have any problem. We're
Okay.
really lucky that way. I know a lot of municipalities aren't fortunate, but Vernon is, and is Mukwonago
Yep.
too?
Yep, we're good.
They'll work anywhere that we ask them to work. Well, I shouldn't say anywhere, but.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes.
So, the high school is available, correct?
Yeah, so some of the concerns that we had, and we talked about them at length last year, was that the elementary schools, one, I mean, even at the elementary locations, it was challenging, particularly with Big Bend with voting, just given the 164 and the walking. We don't have the ability to go to virtual instruction at the elementary school. So as we talked about last year, if we have to cancel school at Rolling Hills and at Big Bend, we also have to cancel it at locations where there's no connection to the vote that day. So Clarendon, right across the parking lot, it's not being used, but the school is still shut down because all the elementary kids have to be scheduled off. That has an impact on families, and it's something that we hear. We just briefly had a conversation with Stephanie Blue, the high school principal, and said, how hard would it be to flip to a day of virtual instruction? And at the high school, where you don't have to provide the child care, and you have a big building, the high school would be a space that could be used and would not impact us from an instructional minute standpoint, because we could have that designated virtual day for the large elections, as you mentioned. So that would be the facility that we could spare and not really put a hiccup in our academic program. The high school schedule rotates every day, so kids, they're on a pink day, blue day, whatever it might be. They're used to a little bit more change. It's not going to impact us as much on a Monday or a Wednesday as it does at the elementary.
Is there parking in that area then?
So the high school, if you can picture the front of the building,
Yep.
you would have a possibility of using the West Gym, for instance, for the town of Mukwonago, the foyer of the Performing Arts Center for the Village of Vernon, and then you would have the parking all along the side of the building for Vernon, which does have handicapped accessible. You'd also have in front of the building. Our staff could be in that day. They could park in the back of the building. They could come in, do professional learning, monitor virtual learning that day, and you could have the two communities still separated within the same building.
That would
You're
work
talking
for
about
us.
the east side and the west side of the building.
Correct.
Can I ask if, have you been approached by the village? Because I knew they were talking at one point of using the school, moving
I
to
have
the school.
not been approached by them at all.
Okay.
I haven't heard any word of it.
And just to be clear, all of this would not be for this coming election, it's next year and in the
2 years.
future. Okay.
Yeah, next year's a real
Next
light
year's
year.
fine.
Right.
Yeah, we have two small elections.
Right.
Yep. So last year, the board took action to keep voting in the schools through this November, which got through the primary election and then this presidential election. And then that's kind of where the end of the discussion happened. So brought it back forward this year to have future conversations.
Yep.
So would it make sense to make this November election at the high school if that's what we want to do?
Oh, we
Can't.
can't now.
That's
We can't,
too
too late.
soon.
Too late.
Okay, just had to ask. All right, gotcha. Hey, relax, would you?
It'd be 26.
Anyways, I did tell the board and everybody else that I would like to keep the voting in our schools, because I'd like to have the public in our schools. I think it's part of them seeing how clean our schools are, how great our schools are. I have no problem with you guys using the high school, not one bit, my opinion.
And that would work for Kathy and I don't know if we'll be there by then, but I mean, with proper signage, but even if you do proper signage, you're still gonna have voters going, but you can handle that.
Right, right. We're still gonna, and we still get the people now. We've been at Rolling Hills for, I don't remember how many years, and we still have people stopping at the hall going, where do I vote? So we put signs out, voting at Rolling Hills, because they're still, it's just like, I paid my taxes here last year. Well, you haven't paid here in years, but. So it's just a learning curve for the people. We'll deal with all that.
Crosby?
Joe, do you know if there's been any conversations with the village or town police departments regarding security if we were to open up the school? I mean, obviously the kids won't be there, but there still is a residual security concern for the days after.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly can talk, both the village and the town, we have a conversation anytime our buildings are being used for elections and what type of law enforcement presence we would need there. I don't know what type of interagency, if you would be able to allocate a resource there yourselves. We do have a school resource officer who's stationed at the high school on, every day. But if the board wanted to go down this road, I think we would be first looking at, I'm trying to think of the first election.
26.
26.
It'd be August of 26 for the bigger election. That'd be the governor.
So we have almost 2 years then to sort out what we would need to do from
And
that
even for this
standpoint.
election, you don't have the kids in school that day. We have officers that do walkthrough. We don't have them stay there. They did when we were with the kids, and they interacted with the kids while they were there. When we used your schools before, we had several officers that day. But even like now, we're gonna have officers that are gonna do walkthrough, drive-throughs, and park their cars, and so there'll be a presence, but they can't sit at the door when people are walking in to vote.
And same with Vernon, Waukesha County, even, we just have a contract for one sheriff from 3:30 to 11:30 every, but they put extra staff on that day and come in, and they're there when the guys set up DPW wise, and throughout the day they come and they always have somebody like right in the area, if anything, God forbid, would happen.
Yeah, the last two elections with both municipalities have worked. They've been very supportive. When we had the summer election, people were there and present, keeping an eye on the school when we had nobody in the building those days.
And all the voters too are really, really concerned about the kids too. Everybody's concerned about the kids, so that's first and foremost. I think that's our concern also, is you want to keep the children safe.
And I think if we did that at high school with 2 municipalities, I would think somebody would have to be in the parking lots directing people.
Yeah, usually, we always have, for a presidential or governors, we always have somebody in the parking lot, because if there's a curbside voter, I mean, there's a lot of issues in the parking lot to begin with, but even though you have all that, you're still gonna have people walk up and say, I'm here to vote, and I live in the town of Mukwonago.
Right.
We do have the ability to segment the high school off, so the west gym could be locked to the west gym in that athletic area. The PAC foyer could be locked off so that you could go in there. There's bathroom facilities nearby should people need them.
You'd really need some kind of division, because even now, for where they're located and we get people from Vernon coming to vote by us because their licenses say Mukwonago, but they're Vernon, and you might get
Yeah,
those
we get,
too, so.
because we have 8 different zip codes in Vernon, so we get people,
Right.
we had a person that came from Oklahoma, they in a little trail, we're here to vote. Come on, Maul, get in here.
So, I mean, you'd want it somehow segregated there,
Right.
even if we're both using it, so.
And we would, I know we do big signage, but even still, just so you understand, you can have the best signage and a lot of documentation in your newsletter and a special mailing, and it's, you'll still have big signs,
Right.
even at the front door of the village, you're not voting here, they'll come and say, where are we voting? It says right.
Any other questions? Do you have any questions for us or concerns?
I just appreciate the dialogue. I mean, God only knows where we're gonna be in a couple years, but I think the option at the high school is much better than the little elementary schools. And like I said, internally, we're trying to address so that we don't have to bug you guys, because
Well,
Yep.
yeah, I think it would work as well. And like I said, just those big elections, that'd be a huge help, and we'll just make the other ones work.
I guess the last thing I'd say is thinking of myself as a Vernon resident, you know, I was taken back the first time I had to go to Big Bend all of a sudden, right? So now if we're going to have Vernon go to the high school just for the big elections, you know, I can see these people who are just getting off work to go in the nick of time, and then they show up at a non-big election at the high school and they go, oh, where do I vote now? Like it's too much back and forth as not as a school board member, but as a person living in Vernon. I want it to be at the same place all the time.
And so does everybody. They always want to vote at the same place, even though when we had it split, people would say, well, I always came to the village hall to vote. Well, you were voting absentee. You can't, we don't have people staged at the fire department or in the DPW hall. So, I mean, and they say you have to put it in documentation at least 7 times for it to click. And that's the problem. If you move elections to different locations, it is confusing.
Well, we did mailers, we've done those, but we all know where that gets us. And, you know, they think it's junk mail, and sometimes it's not seen. We can put it in our tax letter if the change is gonna happen, if we know in advance. So we got some time to talk about it and see if it'll work and get the communication out there ahead of time.
I read your email, Kathy, just so you know.
Thank you. It's
So
a
like
nice thing.
looking forward, is this something you're going to put in your strategic plan if you're still using the high school, or is this something you're going to then just plan on like using it like for big elections like forever?
We would use it for the big elections, and depending on which way the board chooses to go. I mean, we still have to someday build a DPW garage because the town is growing, and, you know, we probably someday have to do our own snow plowing because that could go away too. Nobody wants to do that either. So I think that's down the road, but I think it wouldn't be panic mode at some point, and, you know, we'd have more time to look at it and explore. Because we have to purchase land, so, as well.
And ours all depends on what happens with the facility study. But I just wanted you to know, worst case scenario, we can hold our elections at the Village Hall DPW complex. It's just not the most conducive part, but it works.
Is that the creepy building?
That's the creepy building. Then they'll ask, this is why we're asking for a new building. Oh, it's okay.
Yeah, but the people who are in there during elections, they make it a nice building.
Yeah, well, and it's not so bad in November because you have the heat, but in August, we're right by the Fox River, which smells a little funny, and the mosquitoes, so you have to pour like, you sign here.
They need a plan.
Yeah. And if we have the big fans going, it blows it's always something. But we're working on it.
All right, well, we don't have any other questions, so
But once again, thank you so much for at least entertaining the dialogue, and
Yes,
we're going to work
thank
on
you
our
very
part
much.
and get back to you guys.
Yep.
Sound good?
sounds
So
good.
are we you gonna talk it down the road, and you're
So
gonna?
moving forward, yes, as a board, we'll discuss it, find out, like, now we have more information.
Yeah.
High school is available, and we'll have to bring it to the full board and discuss and vote on that.
That'd be
Sounds
great.
good.
But
We'll
I
keep
appreciate you
posted
coming
on our
in.
end, too.
Yes.
Does that sound good?
One more question. What is the timeline that you need to announce? Is it 3 months prior to the election, or is it 6 months prior? I know there was a rule for that.
To announce the changing of a polling place?
Correct, yeah.
Like 90 days?
90 days, okay.
Because when you go on My Vote, it'll tell the voters exactly where they vote.
In my opinion, it's sooner than later, so you notify all the people and everything as well.
Yep.
So the more publicity you put out there that you're doing this, the better it is for you.
It's
If we
nice.
did
for
do
the-
that, the school district could probably put something out too.
Yep, yeah, we can.
And we do our recreation guide, so we would put it in our park and rec guide. And like I said, we could do it, if we knew in advance at the end of 25, we could put it in the tax letter and stuff like that as well, so.
I
there
will
are
say, when
places to advertise.
we did vote a year ago to take it out, I heard very quickly from some town residents that it had been taken out. So whatever gets around, people do read.
They do.
Were the complaints just from the town? Vernon didn't complain.
Vernon didn't.
I no comment on that
They
one.
just complain about their polling place. So thank you very much.
Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
You guys have a
Thank
good
Thank you for
meeting.
coming.
Take care.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thursday.
See you Thursday.
Remember to smile. Hi. Thanks again.
Thanks again. Yep.
Thank you.
Just